Let your heart shine bright. Let us take you to what is right. Let your heart shine bright. Let us take you to what is right.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya wal Mursaleen. Amma ba'd, fa'a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As-salatu wa salamu alayka ya Rasulallah.
As-salatu was-salamu alayka ya Rasulallah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah.
Salatu wa salamu alayka ya Nabiyallah.
Salatu was-salamu alayka ya Nabiyallah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nurallah.
Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nurallah.
My dear Islam brothers and viewers of Madani Channel, welcome back to our beautiful program tonight with Madani Channel. The topic we wanted to discuss about today is our youth and the Deen. How we can help and how we can get our youth back onto the track again. So, mashallah, Harun bhai, you're on the right hand side. So we'll start off with you. Our topic is youth. You're mashallah, you're a barrister. You must be meeting a lot of people, our youngsters on the streets as well. If you can start off with that.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Youth, having the energy, having the ability to basically do what you want. So, in the society we live in, especially the youngsters in this country and in the Western world, you know, we're born almost with a golden spoon in our mouth. And, you know, we don't have to worry about where the next meal is coming from. We don't have to worry about the roof on our heads. Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed us with a lot of ni'mats, a lot of great blessings. And so, one of those blessings is youth energy. Now, what we want to do is try and use that in a productive way. And what your mind perceives as being productive is really dependent upon the environment you're in and the upbringing you have, and then the understanding of the Deen that Allah Azza wa Jal gives you. There have been very many people in the past, Awasab, who have come into this world, lived their life, and gone and nobody knows about them. At the moment there are maybe hundreds and thousands of people out there who maybe are watching us as well. And really the question is, you're part of a kind of a machine almost, that you come into this world, you're born, you go through the education system, you get a job, you earn money, you earn a living, you spend your youth and your energy in trying to earn money, trying to earn a living, trying to build a house, and then one day you get old and you die. Is that it? And there are a lot of people who used this youth to leave a mark in the world. They used their energy, they used their, you know, intellect, their skills for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal and His beloved Habib Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I think in the, you know, in the beautiful Islamic era, what had happened is the youth used to use their youthfulness, their energy in the way of Allah Azza wa Jal. And, you know, many of the Islamic conquests, many of the ways that people went out, you know, you had youngsters in their teens, late teens, early 20s, who walked for, you know, hundreds of miles for the Deen of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, to spread the message of Islam. And this was their enjoyment, this was their life, this was everything to them. Unfortunately, we live in an era where the mental kind of attitude is that I will go to the masjid when I get old. I will pray namaz when I get old. I will go on hajj when I've got nothing else to do. I will do the work of deen when everything else is closed. You know, what we get lost in, Hafizab, is these luxuries of this world. And what we forget about is the reason we're here and what we are, you know, the book of deeds we had. But more importantly, the fact that this life is only a little dot on our time scale, and that our grave and our akhirat and the palaces of Jannah all depend on, you know, your worship. Now, if you worship Allah Azza wa Jal in your youth, in your prime, the doors of the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal are opened. And this is the key to it. There is so much to gain in that early age.
MashaAllah, Tawfiq bhai, you know, you You live in the heart of the community. You talk to a lot of youngsters as well. What seems to be the problem with our youngsters, that they're moving away from the Deen, even though we live in an era where knowledge is so widely available and so easy to gain?
Hafsa, before we look at the root causes of the problem, we need to understand the problem itself. Now, let's be honest. When we look around, we say youth is our future. Youth, today's youth will be the future's leaders, and they mean a lot to us, and a lot of importance is given in the society. But here today, we're talking about a Muslim youth. A youngster in today's life, there's no doubt it's a very testing time. It's not easy for youngsters to stay steadfast upon the Deen. And let's be straight, that there are youngsters, unfortunately, that they don't pray 5 daily salah. And it's a very sad thing. You're a Muslim, namaz is farz upon you, and you're not reading, and you're not doing anything about it. And then it's quite sad to hear as well, and I'm aware of incidences where one main reason why people don't read their salah is because they don't know how to pray salah. Now, I've seen someone who's around 40-year-old who generally, if you look at the society point of view, is living a fine life. He works, he's got family, he's got kids have grown up, and as family life he's doing really well. Yeah, but it's his personal life or his Islamic life, if you look at it, once he came to our learning session, and straight after that it was nearly namaz time. And this man, he was confused. I was thinking, he was in Zohar namaz, and we were about to pray, and he's confused. He didn't know what to do. And he asked me, and obviously I didn't make him feel this, but it really touched me. That he stood there, and he didn't know what to do if Jamaat's happening. At least you'll expect someone to, if Jamaat's happening, you'll stand there, you'll copy the Imam. Yeah, he didn't know, and what the impression I got from that individual was that this person, if he didn't approach me, there was a chance that during the Jamaat time he would have been standing out on the side with hands like this.
Allahu Akbar.
And alhamdulillah, that brother, that was his turning point, and mashallah, he's well connected now.
But the thing is, for that person to be in the masjid was a big thing.
That itself was a big thing. But for me, that was an eye-opener. That sometimes we blame the youth. They don't go to masjid, they don't read namaz, they don't read the Quran. We say these words, but one main reason why they don't do it is because they don't know how to read namaz, they don't know how to recite the Quran, and if they do come forward, they fear that people are going to have a laugh at them. They're going to fear the elders are going to turn them away.
It does happen as well, doesn't it, in a real world?
And if you look at the wider as a problem in our youngsters, unfortunately, they don't understand their own Islamic identity. They're confused. Yeah, they don't know their own Islamic faith. If I'm a Muslim, why am I Muslim? What makes me a different person than someone who's not Muslim, or someone who does not have a faith? What's the difference? Yeah, we need to know our own faith. What do we believe that makes us different? Yeah, then you look at the basic rulings of Islam. Yeah, the ahkam, the farais and the wajibat of namaz. You look at the wuzu. If you were to ask, just go around, do a survey, ask youngsters how to do wuzu. Yeah, there will be people who will stutter, who won't be able to say things.
But one thing I agree with you, Tawfiq Bhai, is we don't want to be playing a blame game. Okay, we've got a problem, we've got this. Okay, our youth, we can see what the problem is. The youth is a very golden age. As they say that, like you mentioned, that your next leaders will be from these youth, and it really hurts you when you see these youths who were supposed to be holding the flag of Islam, but now they're on the streets. Even after Ramadan now, I've seen it, especially when the sun's coming out, they'll be driving about with their cars. What is it that, how can we put this into their heads that...
I think some of the problem is much more complex, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to give medicine to somebody who is a preventative medicine to somebody who's way down the line of illness. Do you know, when you get, say for example, you get cancers of certain types. Now, when people have reached the last and critical stage, if at that stage you try to give them the medicine which if you had given them at the beginning, it could have prevented it, then it's not going to work, is it? The problem with the youth today is that, unfortunately, it's our mistakes. Because what has happened is this: we have distance ourselves from Islam, the real Islam. As these youths were growing up, then because the parents didn't tell them what our deen was, because society generally, I mean, you know, like Tawfiq Bhai said, Dawat Islamika Kami, we don't pull our punches. Our masajid didn't provide any activities for youth, didn't welcome them into the, you know, if a youngster came into the masjid, you've seen it, I've seen it, I took it through 18, you know, where have you come from?
Yeah, we make fun of him.
We'll make fun of him. Yeah. You know, look at him, he's 18, he can't even read namaz properly. And, you know, this is the problem. We deter them and we send them back. Now, the problem is this. Right at the beginning, if from an early age, the parents had taken responsibility to say, we are Muslims, we live in countries which are secular, so our children, when they go to school, they don't learn anything in relation to the deen. Our children, when they're watching all this that we've provided the entertainment, they don't learn the deen. So we need to make some provision to teach them who we are and where we're going. Now, those children, you'll have seen people who still now, and I've seen it as you know, over the years. Every night you see them with their sons, you know, going to the masjid, reading, praying Isha, and taking their children with them. Whenever there's a mahfil in the mosque, they are always there with their children. At Jummah, if the children are at school, at colleges, they're always there. And they've got this relationship, they've got this mahal that they've built up, right? Now, you know, the problem is, I could be very nice to people and say, well, look, if your child's gone off on the wrong path, oh, it doesn't matter, that's only kismat. No, it isn't. I'm sorry, but what you've done probably is, if you look back, you failed. Now, the reason I'm highlighting that is not to make those who have lost their children to drugs and everything else to feel embarrassed. No, there are hundreds and thousands up there who are at the moment, who've got young children, who can change it. And this is where, you know, that critical stage we reach. If you and I, we go out and speak to those boys on the street, yeah? And it's very, very difficult. Alhamdulillah, the Madani Mahal of Dawat Islam is so brilliant that over time, with Infiradi Koshish, a lot of brothers have left that environment and come back to Allah and His beloved Habib Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But what I'm saying is, instead of spending, you know, if you said, spend £1 billion to change 10 people on this end of the scale, whereas you could spend £10 and bring them, you know, on this side, you'd say that's no comparison. What I'm saying is, spending days, weeks, months and years trying to reform these people, okay, we're going to do that. But at the same time, we need to concentrate on this end where we can get...
And you know, we're not only talking about young youth, boys, we're talking about girls as well.
Allah.
You know, I get a lot of parents ringing up and, you know, talking about their children, and I really feel sorry for them as well. And I really feel sorry for the children. It's not always boys, it's girls as well.
It's true. Maybe if I was to take another step forward, that the issue is probably worse in the sisters. Yeah, and it's quite scary. You know, it's not easy to talk to parents and elders sometimes on this topic, especially if you're in a house environment and you're doing a short speech and you mention these issues. A lot of people are going through these problems, and sometimes parents are stuck. Yeah, you know, if you look at another issue with the youngster is that they don't have a control on their tongue. You know, whatever comes to their mind, they just say it. You know, for example, you spend 1 hour with a youngster, he'll probably swear about 50 times. Yeah, and you know, F this and S that and whatever. They'll say all sort of things. There's no haya. And there's nothing shocking that these youngsters, these individuals who have a habit of swearing and using foul mouth, they'll use these words to their parents as well.
You know, there's a saying of a very famous personality, and he says, 3 common areas he's highlighted, 3 common areas where Muslim youth should focus on. And one of them is obeying and respecting parents, and the other is the utilization of time, and the third one is to avoid listening to and seeing things prohibited by Islam. Now, majority of these, you know, young lads or even girls as well, what they do is like they'll be watching, you know, pop culture or the other raga culture. And ma'azallah, you know, someone drove past me the other day, and windows were down, and there was a reggae music, and every word was a swear.
You know, that's because they don't have a purpose of life. You know, they don't have a meaning to their life. What do they want to achieve? They can't see, they can't recognize what is right, what is wrong. And that is a massive area. You know, it's lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, and obviously loads of things play a role to that.
You know, when Harun Bhai mentioned as well, you know, the parents at this moment of time, you know, if your son or daughter is doing something wrong, you know, majority of the time, you know, sometimes you're angry. I've heard many parents say, that's the wrong attitude to go. You know, at the end of the day, what's going to happen is, They're going to put a bad name to you, but they're going to put a bad name to Islam.
But sometimes as parents, you need to be very careful when you curse your children. Yeah, because what if that time is a time of acceptance? And you might say something, and what if that child has a calamity then? Then it's going to be you who's going to cry. So we need to be very careful.
Kind of shows us, Tawfiq Bhai, that the parents, unfortunately, or I'm doing it on purpose because the parents can't handle it. When they haven't taught him any good, but when he does something bad, all they can do is, rather than speak to him in a nice way, they start cursing them. And it's our failures. The problem comes when it comes to worldly things. When it comes to speaking to people in authority, when it's going to the offices, when you need to do your benefits, when you need to do your tax returns, if you're speaking to people in authority, you know how to deal with them. If you're speaking to youth on the street, you seem to be giving them all the lectures. But yet in your own home, you cannot set up a system where it does. And the problem is, we do it too late. What it is, it's a lack of understanding. How many times have you heard, when the child's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and he does something wrong, when he gets older, he'll understand.
Yeah, I've had a lot of that.
How many times? Now, the thing is with that, it shows a lack of understanding. What they're saying is, he'll grow out of it. They're not saying, where has this come from? Now, what Imam Ghazali Rahmatullahi says is that the age, your child was a blank sheet of paper. The age to start writing on that blank sheet of paper was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? Now, what the psychologists say is very important. What they say is this: from the age of about 5 or 6 to the age of about 9, 8, 9, you know who the child's role model is? Whether it's the son or the daughter. If it's the son, you as a father are the role model. If it's a daughter, you as a mother are a role model. Because you're their world, right? Gradually, at the age of 9 or 10, it moves, that focus shifts to their friends, right? But you've still got a significant influence over them. The environment in your home has a significant influence over them, so you can counteract the evils of society, right? The problem then is, by the time he's reached 12 and 13, now there's too much to battle. Why? He's got footballers, he's got film stars, he's got all these things, and then he's got his mates and all the ideals that he's made in society. Now you disappear. So you can now do, and parents often say, I've tried everything. You have, but you've tried it when the door was closed. There's a famous, you said to a blind person, you try explaining to him with your hand sign language, he ain't going to understand. If you've got a deaf person and you try to speak to him rather than with sign language, it ain't going to work. So you've got to tailor, you've got to tailor what you do to the person in front of you. Now, when a child is at that age, what you have to do is give him the Islamic training and the understanding. Once you do it from the age of 5, 6, 7 up to 12, after 12, often they say, because they've got that good foundation, the child will know this is right and wrong.
But Harun, here, you could say like a slight disagreement or just like another angle to it. Sometimes, we do say it's parents' fault. Parent didn't do anything good for them. What have they done? They never cared for them. They didn't nurture them. If you look at it from a parent point of view,
I don't think it's always the parents.
That's what I was going to say. And if you say that to a parent, that parent generally overall, majority of the parents, they love their children. They want to do the best, for their kids. Yeah, and it's another thing that are they doing the best thing that they're doing, is that actually best for them? That's a different question.
Is that the right thing?
Is that the right thing? Is that the right way to nurture them? That's a different question. But from their heart, they are trying to do the best. Yeah, and whatever they do. Yeah, but here, and at the same time, today's topic is mainly for, late youth. I'm talking about late teens or the youngsters, 20, 30-year-olds. If you look at them, it's a fact that, there are parents who have no control anymore. Yeah, and we could sit here, blame them, but that's not going to change things around now. No, they're not going to go back. Yeah, so that's a type of parenting is a different topic. But here, as a youngster, who gives you the right to swear at your parents? Who gives you the right to look into the eye of the parents? They is mum. Whatever they are, if you think they've done good for you or not, that is your mother, that is your father. And you need to know this. And the problem is, because you're spending too much time with your friends in a bad company. It's not just about the friends, it's the bad friends. Yeah, you got that type of environment around you in the gang culture. You know, you're too busy with chasing the dunya, chasing the money, chasing the power, and you know, at the same time, you know, lack of Islamic knowledge. Yeah, you don't know what's right, what's wrong, and you end up doing all these things. But you know, if you look at it, you know, if you're involved in drugs, alcohol, gambling, and whatever you guys are doing at the moment, you know, that, you know, deep down, you know it's wrong. Yeah, you know it's wrong, but you're not making any steps to improve it.
Again, Tawfiq Bhai, on the other side, yeah, like I said, you know, we're not blaming the parents wholly and solely. But the thing is, I've seen, you know, a few parents that I have met with, yeah, there's one thing I've seen is there's no motivation. You know, either they've given up, they've lost hope, but there's been no motivation from the beginning. And you know, our children, they need that motivation, and especially when it's from the parents, you know, that has a very big
You know what,
effect
the
on
problem we have is that, like Tawfiq Bhai said, you know, the difficulty isn't the love and the caring. All parents are loving and caring, you know, within reason. And this is not a question of how much they love, it's how you express that love, right? You know, I could be saying, I love my children, so he can have all the TV stations, and he can have the remote. Yeah. He can go out to the pictures. He can do what he wants because I love him. I'm going to give him the freedom. I'm going to buy him a car. I'm going to go do what you want, man. Mujamar. Yeah, I love him. That's silly, but that's what we do.
Gee.
Right? Now there's the flip side of that. I love my child, so I'm going to make him a namazi. I love my child, so I'm going to make him hafiz al-Quran. I love my child, so I'm going to teach him the deen of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I love my child, so I'm going to teach him the love of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now let me tell you this. You know, the love, the scholars say that it's the love of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam that can turn the youth around. You know, for weeks, months, years, decades, we've been debating how do we turn this youth around. Do you know the one thing that can turn the youth around? You can give them as much admonition. It goes in through one and it comes out the other. The one thing that I've seen is you instill in them the love of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, that just goes straight to the heart. And let me start with the example of a youthful man. He was the best dressed man in Mecca. His mother is one of the richest ladies in Mecca. You know, if somebody went down a street and it smelt nice, they used to say, has Musab bin Umair passed the street?
Gee.
And he was just a prince. Somebody's he falls in love. Now, a lot of these youth of today, they fall in love as well, don't they? Fast cars, they're texting women and all that, yeah? And they think, right, we're doing it. You know, and I'm enjoying life now. And they think they fall in love. He didn't fall in love with the world. He fell in love with the best of creation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? He gave up everything. You know what Mother said? Mother said, I want my clothes back, I want my attars back, I want everything back. You're not having a life of luxury. He said, Mother, you can keep everything because I've found everything. I found Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was one of the early ones to migrate. I think that I read he was one of the first ones to migrate to Abyssinia. And then Aka Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam sat in the Masjid Sharif and he came back. And Tawfiq Bhai, you know, when he came back, this was the best dressed man in Mecca. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he saw him, Aka Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam started to cry. He said, look at that man. This was the best dressed young man in Mecca. And look what my love has done to him. And he was wearing a chadar, a mantle that was torn in places. And his clothes were simple. But he had found peace and tranquility. And what he did, he used his youth for the deen of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he was one of the martyrs of Uhud Sharif. And whenever we go to Uhud Sharif, Hazrat Mus'ab bin Umair reminds us of what you do with your youth. You know, we go to Uhud Sharif and we do the dua there. When you next time go there, think next to Hazrat Sayyid al-Shuhada, Hazrat Amir Hamza radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, is this youth who sacrificed his youth at the feet of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What have I done? You know, I've lived my life and I've tried to build an empire and everything else here. Tell me, what have I done in the love of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
That's a very important point there. You know, as an individual, you know, we should think, you know, whichever field I'm in, you know, I could be a doctor, whatever you're doing, you could be a student, you could be at college, you could be working somewhere. What are you doing to serve Islam?
You know, it's a critical point in your life, your youth age. Now is the time where you can go whichever way you want, really. You know, and subhanallah, Harun Bhai mentioned about Musa bin Umair radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And even if you look at Hazrat Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu, his children, Hazrat Ali Akbar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he was 18, he was his prime age. You know, Hazrat Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu's nephews, Hazrat Imam Hassan's Awlad, all these people, you know, they were youth as well. Now, one thing we want to, you know, get across to the youth is, this is the age where you can make it or you can break it. You know, if you one slight turn, Harun, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, you're on your friend's religion. Now, if you have got good friends, they'll take you onto the good path, they'll take you on the Madani Qafila. And if you have bad friends, just that one little, you know, at that time you made the wrong decision, for the whole life you're going to regret it.
So the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal is amazing. Billions of people in this world, billions of creatures and everything else, right? Listen to this hadith in Mubarakah. From creation, the entire creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. So from creation, Allah Azza wa Jal loves most that delightful young man who spends his youth and beauty worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal. Taking pride in front of the angels, Allah Azza wa Jal says, this is my real servant.
Subhanallah.
This is my real servant. You know, we spend our lives trying to impress the people and we don't get anywhere. Gosh, we changed our intention and we said, I don't want to impress the people. I'm just going to spend my life trying to please my Creator.
You know, one thing I mentioned about motivation, there's a very beautiful narration about Hazrat Sayyidina Imam Azam Abu Hanifa radiallahu ta'ala anhu, motivating his students. You know, it's students like Imam Abu Yusuf rahmatullah alayhi in his prime age. And Imam Azam Abu Hanifa radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he says to him that, oh Abu Yusuf, you know, you should spend your time in seeking knowledge in this age.
Allah.
Yeah. And then, you know, alhamdulillah, that was motivation. Nowadays, you know, our youngsters are not, I mentioned that
unfortunately,
before.
you know,
they don't get that motivation.
We lack that local support that you need as an
even
individual.
Families, at home, yeah, all they're talking about is just money. You know, ye paisa, ho paisa. In the lockdown, he's claimed so money, he's claimed. There's no motivation at home that, look, you know, and I'm not saying this is everyone. On the other side,
but youngster needs that support.
You know, on the other side, Tawfiq Bhai, you know, you've got other youngsters, mashallah, there'll be so many that will be watching now, alhamdulillah. They've made a use out of this lockdown, alhamdulillah. You know, their parents, and I've had a lot of parents as well. You know, when we say a lot of parents, it doesn't mean that it's not doom and gloom, yeah. But there's a lot of parents that do ring up and say, alhamdulillah, my son has finished, you know, we got a message there in Ramadan, he's finished 2 Quran Pak in Ramadan. So, you know, there are youngsters, mashallah, who are doing good, who are, you know, basically, our youngsters should be taking them as role models, you know. That these guys in the same age, and they're doing so much for that.
The Quran is a guide for the mankind. It's a universal message for all types of people, from people from different faiths, people from those who don't have a faith. Islam is a means of guidance and inviting them towards the truth. And as a Muslim, you know, whenever we have issues or problems, we need to turn towards the Quran for the guidance. And as one of the main root causes of the issues that we're having as an individual is going away from the Deen, and that is heedlessness, ghaflat. And ghaflat is such thing that it distances one person from Allah Almighty, from the remembrance of Allah Almighty. In the glorious Quran, in Surah Munafiqun, Allah Almighty says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, la tulhikum amwalukum wa la awladukum an dhikrillah, wa man yaf'al dhalika fa ulaika humul khasirun.
Allah.
O people who believe, may not your wealth or your children cause you to neglect the remembrance of Allah. And whoever does this, so it is they are in loss.
Allah.
So ghaflat is such thing. You know, we are so busy. We say that we are loving our children. We say that we are looking after our family members. We say we are busy earning livelihood. But don't let all this take you away from the remembrance of Allah.
You know, one in Nigrani Shura, I don't know if you remember when he did a bayan in the university, I think it was Salford University, and one of the questions Nigrani Shura posed to the youngsters was, okay, you know, someone is doing medicine, someone is doing engineering, someone is doing law, whatever, you know, why are you doing these courses? And the majority of them, they replied, because of money. You know, because of money, status, whatever. And Nigrani Shura beautifully said, he goes, if you only had that intention that I'm going to be serving my Deen, Islam doesn't stop you from becoming a millionaire. The more money you will have, the more zakat you will give. So have this purpose, have this intention that I'm going to benefit my deen. That should be purpose number one.
Another issue that we see in the youth is that generally, they struggle to give in the way of Allah. You won't see a lot of youngsters giving sadaqah, giving to the masjid. If they do, they'll give them really old coppers, small pence. Yeah, they don't have that jazbah. But if you look at it as a bigger picture, our elders, going 20, 30 years back, them elders, they worked so hard in the mills, in the warehouses, and they earned all our money. They built masajid for us across the UK, and around the world. They've done a hard job. They give, that naturally their hearts were inclined to give in the way of Allah. But now, sometimes you worry.
There's a question from sorry, you finished.
Sometimes you worry that our elders have built the masajid, but will our youngsters be able to take this further?
Will they be carry the mission forward? As a youngster says that, how can I deal with having a friend who I care about, but he's got bad behavior? How can I deal with that situation? Let's be honest as well. You've got a friend, you love him, you really, want to be with him around all the time, but he's got a bad behavior. How can this youngster, try to give him neki that will bring? It's either, there's two things, isn't there? Either, you change him, or as they say, if you can't beat him, join him. You might join him as well.
I think in that sort of situation, Hafsab, what you've got to do is, not knowing obviously this brother, but if he comes into, joins a Madani environment, and what I would encourage is the Madani environment of Dawat Islami, so that he puts himself in a position where he can then help his friend. Because if you're a true friend, you've got to help your friend. And the best way to help him is to invite him to the Deen of Nabi Kareem, so show him the beauty of Islam. So he leaves his habits. But if you can't do that at the moment, a few years ago we weren't like this. We were born and bred in this country. It was a beautiful mahal of Dawat Islami, and somebody did that. Somebody actually brought us close to this mahal. And people, somebody invited us to the Madani Kafilas of Dawat Islami. Somebody invited us, and we went and we learnt. We came back. We taught our families. We taught our brothers, and gradually they changed. That's what happened, didn't it? So if that brother is genuinely doing that, I'd say, go online, look at the Dawat Islami booklets, read those. When the ijtimas are open after this lockdown, inshallah, attend the Madani Kafilas, attend the ijtimas of Dawat Islami, build yourself up, and then gradually try and bring him with you. If not, try and work on him. When he sees you praying your 5 salah, the importance of salah will find way in his heart. When he sees you that you reading the Quran every day, the love of the Quran will pierce his heart as well. And when he sees that you're always talking about Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and in the love of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you've kept a beard, that may change him as well.
There's a message. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm watching your program. Allah reward you for your efforts. The question that someone's asked is, I pay a lot of attention to my son and my daughters, but I don't get any support from the other side. So I don't know if it's a mother, or most likely it's going to be the mother. And I've seen that as well. Mothers pay attention, they try to do a lot, but sometimes the father figure is not in the in the life of the child itself. He might be working all day, or you might not even have that. And mothers, how much can they do as mothers?
You see, if you've got a bicycle.
No, I've just bought one today.
You just bought one today?
Are you asking me or just
no? I'm saying, if you've got a bicycle, would you be able to get far with one wheel?
No.
The family unit, mother and father have to work hand in hand. One of the things that the Buzurgan Deen teach is that mother and father need to instill respect for each other in the hearts of the children, and then working together they have to mould them. Now there's certain times that the mother will say, when your dad gets back, he's not going to be happy, and he's just had a 12-hour shift, you calm down and go to one side. There are all these etiquettes that they can teach about each other, but together they can teach the children a lot. Now the problem is this, Officer. Well, you've got one of them and they start playing these games, and we see it every day, and it's sad, but it's childish as well, because what they're doing is destroying their own children, where they think, well, if I got the kids on my side, it gives me power. So if my son, and I've seen this with my own eyes, if my son wants 20 quid, but it means that he's closer to me, I'll give him 20 quid so he's not with his mum or his dad, and then next time when there's an argument, he'll be on my side. That is sad. I've had people who said, you know, son wants to buy a car, and they know, you know, I explained to them, look, do not let him, he's only 18, 19, don't let him get a car, because all he's going to do is roam around with his mates and get into trouble, yeah? But mum's saying, I can't say to him, don't buy a car, because mera dushman ban jasi. And he might go towards his dad. And this is what is destroying our youth. Because if the family environment, how many youth are there out there when you speak to them, they say, Karda maul nahi theek, you know, always arguing, mum and dad are always arguing, that's why we're out here. Because we have failed in our relationships. Now, what, you know, in the olden days, you might remember this, I'm not saying you're old, but, you know. You know, when husband and wife used to argue, they used to argue behind closed doors. And even the children didn't know that they were arguing. Mm-hmm. Honestly, nobody knew. And if word got out in the household, they said, Khabardar, have you ever mentioned it to anybody that we've had an argument? And it used to be once in a while. Today, it's every second day. You know, household arguments, if your wife has had an argument with you, suddenly she's sharing it with all her mates and all her friends. He's like this, he's like that. And the mates are exactly the same. Instead of saying, you know, you need to calm down, you need to do that. No, you're right. And then the whole house falls apart. I've
had a situation, Harumbi, where someone's come up to me and says, my mum and dad have been arguing for yonks and yonks, ages. And every time, mum says to me, Mi das, tu rese kusre nal, piu nal bade dal. And he goes, you know, listening to these kind, I've grown up in that environment. And now I've made a decision. Now, I'm going. Yeah, and then the parents will sit down and say, what's happened here?
You know, in those situations,
don't blame each other.
You know, in those situations, especially for the children, you know, it's important that you don't get involved. You know, don't give sides. Now, obviously, if you can play a role to calm the situations down, if you can play a role to resolve the issues, that's a different thing. But don't give sides to anyone. You know, if there's a problem between husband and wife, that's their problem between them, whatever that is. But you know, you shouldn't be giving your sides to any of them. Whatever, even if your father is wrong, he's still your father. Yeah, you still need to respect him, you know, as a father. Well, I just wanted to mention a few points. There was two.
I've got a few questions, but you can mention a few points.
The two messages that you mentioned. The first one was regarding.
It's good that we're getting the youngsters involved. There's a few messages.
Regarding the first one, that someone said, I want my friends to become good. But I like a friend, you know, I'm really close to this individual, but he's got some bad behavior. What should I do? Yeah, look, there's two things. One, if you're going to carry on hanging out with that individual, his influence of bad behavior is going to have an impact on you. That is natural. That will have. So, for example, if that person, you know, if he's dealing with drugs, yeah, and if you're hanging out with that individual, you never know. One day might change your, you know, you might be in a bad mood. He might give you the spliff, and things might turn for you. So, spending time with someone who has a bad, character in him is harmful. It's very harmful for you. Yeah. Second, you're identifying the bad behavior of your friend, and you're willing of him to, you know, to stay with him. That's a good sign. That means you care for him. So well done for identifying that. But now, there's two things you need to do.
Protect yourself.
First, most importantly, whenever you're with him, talk nicely, talk about Islam, talk about beautiful things, about life, whatever you can talk in the halal way. Stay with him. But whenever he does anything wrong, you have to stay away from that person. Yeah, that's one thing. Second, that now make this your goal. If you want to stay with that friend, your goal now is you want to make him good Muslim. Yeah, for example, if you're to you, for example, if you're saying he's got bad behavior, he doesn't read namaz. So make a goal now, make a purpose. Look, he's my friend. Yeah, I've been with him last 20 years. You know what? I want to make him a namazi now. I want to take him to Muslim.
Maybe it's going to take you further. It's a message, I think it's from a mother, because she's mentioning about the father. I've got grown-up daughters who are being educated in college, but they have no influence from the father side. How can I control my daughters? I'm really worried about them.
I think the essence is you've got to look at what environment you've got, and if you need help, alhamdulillah, this is the beauty of Dawat Islami. It provides a full package. It provides an environment. Now, sometimes you have to work hard, with Madani Channel at home, but as well as that, you've got the sisters Ijtimas. You've got English born, UK born and bred sisters and daughters who are giving dars and bayans, who go to these places. A lot of the sisters, that I met a brother and I mentioned, and he said, my wife's from this country, etc. I said, well, why don't you send her to these? And the impression I was getting when I was speaking to him was that he's thinking this is something backwards, and you're going to have all the sisters who have just come over from Pakistan kind of thing. And I said to him, no, my sisters attend there. One's a teacher, one's an optometrist, and they go there, born and bred in this country. And I said, the sisters do the bayans, it's in English and everything else. And he was surprised. He was surprised. So you've got to try and do the best you can. The best you can is change the environment. Try and get the sisters into the Madani environment. Try and make sure that you can encourage them as much as you want. Try and keep Madani Channel on. And these are the things that we can advise.
Like the last two messages from the family issues that we had. Yeah, from here, look, there's no doubt this is one of the challenges that we face in modern times. It's easy for us to say, husband and wife should be together, but in reality, there's a lot of domestic issues that happen in life, and the children have to be put up with as well. But as one, either you're a father or you're a mother, if your partner is not giving you that support, what you can do is your best. You just need to carry on doing that, and what's not in your in your radar, you can say, you're not responsible for that. Yeah, what if the father's not doing what he's supposed to be doing? You won't be questioned about that. Yeah, so you just carry on doing your best, keep monitoring. Maybe you have to put extra effort in now, to keep them, youngsters, busy with good activities.
You see, a lot of people struggle. Sorry, just on that. A lot of people struggle to think, what can I do? And this is where my simple answer is: look, we're not apt enough, but alhamdulillah, the environment of Dawat Islami will help you as much as it can. But we're here. We're products of the mahal of Dawat Islami. Our households, if they've changed, and the Islamic sisters have reformed their ways, it's because of the environment of Dawat Islami. So you've got something that's tried and tested. But what, unfortunately, some of us, we've left it late. But even now, we were up until university and when we were working. Last 20 years we came into the Madani Mahal. I was about 25 at the time. So it shows my age as well. But, and this is what it does. It can change you at any time.
There's
try and stick to the
question that's relevant. Someone asked, how do I get my children to refrain from wearing, children in brackets, you do say daughters, to refrain from wearing un-Islamic fashion and clothing?
Look, especially these modern times, you can't force them anyway.
No.
Yeah, so what you can do is encourage them, but at the same time, rather than talk to them directly and telling them again and again and taunting at them, share with them the stories of the pious ladies, our role models.
One day, I had an Islamic brother, he was with his dad, yeah. Straight away he comes into his Madina, Hafiz ji, isi bande na putar banao. मैं तो हंसी भी मैं पुत्र था तो थोड़ा क्या करो बंदे ने पुत्र किस तरह बुला इसी की the thing is it's like it's humiliating him right in front of me, and the son there, he's put his head down and he goes, Dad, what are you talking about? And I go, look aisa inshallah puri koshish karsa, tusa jao and I'll talk to him. The first thing is where we go we insult them in front. Now, for example, whoever sent this message here, how can we, what they'll do, if I can picture that in my mind, they'll be sitting at home and say, don't wear these, don't wear these. But instead of saying a lot of don'ts, there's a saying that if you have a board and it says don't run, what people do is they'll run. Why? They won't read the road, don't, they just read the run. So instead of being negative, be positive. Tell them about the Sahaba.
Promote them to walk. Promote them to walk. But here, with regards there's a beautiful analogy I just wanted to add to this here, that like the parent that you said, the father came and he was he wanted you to sort the child out in front of him. In that particular scenario, look, you have to understand, just imagine that there's a big bucket in front of you and you want to fill it with water, but once you're filling the water with water, you made a hole underneath. Yeah, so now whatever water you put in, it's gonna come out. So in those scenarios where you want to do the islah, you want to reform someone, but you're doing with anger, you're doing it to degrade that person, you humiliated him in front of other people. Now whatever you put in that bucket, it's gonna come out. It's not gonna stick there. it won't have the impact that you want. So first step is that, you know, you need to find the right way. There's a beautiful saying, say the right thing in the right way, in the right place, at the right time. Yeah, and all these things play a role.
There's a share isn't hai falahu kamrani narmi wa asani mein har bana kaam bigad jata hai nadani mein. A question, how can I become skilled by continuing my education when my father pesters me to work with him? That's another problem.
Skill doesn't,
you know, basically he's got another line that he wants to go to, but his dad goes, no, jo kuch main tu ya kuch ban se. And then there's children that are worried about these kind, and we need to sometimes, you know, as parents, you know, sit down and talk to them as well.
I think sometimes, it's the misunderstanding of the parents, or misconceptions, or perhaps a lack of understanding. In this environment, shukr karo ki he wants to do something. You know, most parents are crying their eyes out. They come to us and they say, look, he's not doing anything. And he's wasting his life, he's going on the wrong path. And, you know, your son is wanting to learn a skill. You should be grateful to Allah Azza wa Jal. I'm just going to briefly come back to the point you mentioned in relation to the sisters and the clothes. Look, one of the signs the scholars write of Qiyamah is that, you know, clothes, women will be wearing clothes, but they will not be wearing clothes. They will look, you know, without clothes. Now these days, as far as our sisters and daughters are concerned, a lot of these clothes that you get in the marketplaces now are so thin that you can see the skin through it. That is haram, there's no doubt about it. Then the other thing that I'm going to touch upon very briefly is a lot of our youngsters, because the weather's nice, they wear shorts. One person, he rang me and he said, look, can you speak to my son? I've got daughters, 3 daughters, over 16 years of age. He walks around the house in his shorts, right? And I've tried to explain to him, he doesn't understand. So I had to explain to him, look, the sitr for a man starts from above the belly button to below the knee, and you cannot expose that at any time because it's a grave sin. Yeah, and I explained this to him, and it was like he didn't know, and and eventually he changed his ways. Now, today what we do is we think weather's nice and we'll just wear these clothes. And they actually change the environment of our house. If you've got daughters, sisters and mothers, it's disrespectful to them if you're walking around the house in these, and you can wear 3/4 that go below your knees. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, I'm not going to say it's got to be full all the way, but act within the boundaries of Sharia if you want to change the environment in your home. If you're going to dress like that and then your sister or your daughter then does something wrong, it says, you know, why hasn't she got hijab? Well, you were the first one to put a nail in the coffin.
I think sometimes people get confused that, oh, it's my mom, it's my sister. There's no parda between us, but the parda is you have to cover your body, which Sharia has told us all the time. Yes.
But I mean, you know, in our olden days, you know, even 3/4. I know a lot of youngsters who wouldn't wear them at home because, oh, my mum's there, you know. And even some people, we used to, in the olden days, I remember, maybe I'm getting old now, you know, they used to say, you know, if they're in kind of tight clothes, they used to, I remember one brother, he came into the masjid to read namaz and he had trousers on. And they weren't that particularly tight, but he got a chadar and he wrapped it around himself. I feel embarrassed because trousers are usually tight. And this was the hayat that was there. And gradually the things have, you know, the morals have eroded over time.
There's a famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that if you don't have haya, modesty, you do whatever you want.
Just coming back to the topic that we have, just to kind of bring us back to that, because we've got slightly kind of digressed, all on good points. The youth of today, you know, we look at others to blame for our problems. And the youngsters out there, life is what you make it. And if you are living a life at the moment of misery, then it's your own making. But Allah Azza wa Jalla has given you the opportunity to repent and change that. That's the first thing. The other thing is, I just want to deal with quickly a fallacy, because our topic is the youth and Deen. You know, a lot of the youngsters, they think, I'll go for a chill with the boys. And they'll get into the car and they'll have the laugh and the joke, and they'll get the drugs out or whatever, and they'll have something to drink and all of that. And you know, all the way through, hand on heart, ask them. They're not enjoying it, they're just feeling part of the company. And every night, at the end of the night, they think, I've just wasted all that time. But they're in that vicious circle where they don't enjoy it. They're trying to look for peace and tranquility. Those who go to these clubs and all that, they try and look for that peace and tranquility. Ask them, honestly, when you do a heart-to-heart with a one-to-one with them, do you really enjoy it?
No, they don't know.
And they said, no, I hate it. So why are you doing it? He said, I'm just stuck. And so that's why when these youth actually in the Madani environment of Dawat Islam, you know, when they travel on the Madani Qaflas and they get the lazzat of true peace and tranquility. You know, when they go to the Madani Qaflas and they're in the mosque for 72 hours, yeah? They don't want to go out. We had an incident in Bolton, and I think it was Bolton from recollection, a Madani Qafla, and Jack the lad from the street, yeah? And he was like, when he came in, he was 10 men. He was like, world revolves around me, I am it. Right? Stays in the mosque and he's nakhre karna, I don't want this food. You know, in the older days we used to do handiyan from home. Yeah? And we used to have handiyan. I think one of the brothers had brought something and we had rotiyan as well. Because in those times you couldn't go and buy rotiyan at the takeaways as well. So we had handiyan roti from home. I don't want this, I want some fast food. So we thought, okay, you know. So we got him some fast food and everything else. You know, Sunday night, when you know the end where you have the Madani Qafla and everybody kind of chips in to put a bit of money into the masjid, and then you all clean the entire masjid and you do the shoe racks and everything else, yeah? All the way through that. And a lot of brothers who are listening to this are probably thinking, you know, a few months of lockdown, we haven't been to the Madani Qaflas, they're missing them. So all the way through that, this brother's really quiet, yeah? And he's like, is this it? Is this going to end? Is this going to end? You know, when the Madani Qafla finishes, people are packing their bags and their pillows and their layers and their kumbals and everything else, and the hoovering and all that's going on. He starts to cry. Now, this is the same lad who thought he was it. He says, I want to stay here. I don't want to go home. He said, well, you can't stay here. It's the masjid. He says, no, this is the first time in my life that I've got true peace and tranquility. And I'm not going anywhere. Honestly, we had to sit and talk to him and say, you can come on the next Madani Qafla, but you can't stay in the mosque tonight. Allahu Akbar. And this is what they get. So any youth out there, what I would say is this. You don't know what you're missing. If you think going out with the boys and driving around in fast cars is peace,
moving on to the solution to our topic, a Madani Qafla is a massive solution.
Allah.
You know, for those people, for the boys at least, you know, those who can, you know, whenever you get this opportunity in your life, you know, go have a taste. Even if it means go spend a few hours or even half an hour, or just go and meet them people. If a Madani Qafla comes to you in your area, or you become aware there's a Madani Qafla somewhere where you can reach, you know, go and meet these people, spend some moments with them. And the best days, you know, if you really want to get the full taste and, you know, enjoy the spiritual benefit from it, spend the whole time of Madani Qafla. That's a total different feeling.
It's the last thing I've said
it's a big life change
as well, because a lot of daughters might be watching, or other mothers might be watching, saying, how do daughters? There are Islamic ijtimas, they're even carrying on now. I know, because obviously Bachuki and me helps to set them up and everything else. So several times a week there are certain courses ongoing for sisters, and it's all in English as well. You know, when I say all in English, they are in English as well, they're in Urdu as well, they're in other languages as well. So for you, they're all in English. There are courses in English, there are ijtimas in English. Tune in, find out, ask your local zimmadara, and, you know, get your daughters to sit down for 1 hour, listen to the bayan. Maybe that bayan might change you. So it's not just the Dawat Islami provides an environment for the youth, the boys, for the daughters, for the sisters as well. What did Habib say? You know, the Hazrat Imam Hussain, Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam sacrificed youth after youth for the youth of today, so that the message could reach us perfectly. And, you know, today, what do we know about the Deen of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? You know, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam cried in the ghar, and you know the words on the lips of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam from the moment Aka Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam blessed this world, and even at the time that Aka Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's Zahiri Hayat came to an end, Aka Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was saying, Ya Allah, my ummah. And that was us. Aka Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So you've got somebody who loves you so much that was praying for you and is continuing to look after you. Continuing to look after you. And yet you are ignoring the rights of Allah and His Habib Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You know, there's a hadith Mubarakah, Tawfiq Bhai, that really, it's touching and it's very scary, officer. Our deeds are presented in the court of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam every week. Now, can you imagine that when Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who cried for you, who lived their life praying for you, still in the Roza Mubarak looks after us and takes care of our needs by the izn of Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, at the moment, your life evolves around your chilling. Yet, you know, Aka Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam even now is worried about us. You know, when an ummati does something wrong and that is presented, you know, this is just, for those who think that this is heart touching and it would be enough to change their ways. You know when the ummati deeds are presented and there's good there, Aka Kareem thanks Allah Azza wa Jal. But you know when there's bad there, You know the best of creation Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam does? He asks for forgiveness for the ummati.
Subhanallah. You know, Harunbhai, you mentioned about the boys, yeah. You know, sadly, there might be some women, Islamic sisters watching as well. All we're worried about is our makeups and our mobile phones, all this and all that kind of stuff. So if this is what we are going through, and you know, fashion, makeups and all these kind of things we're worrying about, what are you going to teach your own children? And that's where the decline will go. We've got a personality today as well we're talking about, Harunbhai. Today we're talking about the personality. Every week we have a personality that we talk about. And Harunbhai is going to start off with Hazrat Sayyiduna Umar bin Abdul Aziz radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He was a distant relative of who?
Hazrat Umar Farooq radiyallahu ta'ala.
He was a great grandson.
A great grandson. Let me start from there, because you'll have all heard the famous waqia of Hazrat Umar Farooq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and how he used to, when he was Amir al-Mu'mineen, he used to go down the streets and check how people were at night. So when everybody's sleeping, he used to make sure, and this was the era of the height of peace and tranquility and the beautiful Islamic empire. And so Hazrat Umar Farooq radiyallahu ta'ala is out, and he hears a mother say to the daughter, you know, put water into the milk. Doodh mein pani mila de. And the daughter says, Amir al-Mu'mineen has forbidden us to do that. And the mother says, well, Amir al-Mu'mineen isn't watching. And the daughter replies, Amir al-Mu'mineen isn't watching, but Allah Azza wa Jalla is watching. Now Hazrat Umar Farooq radiyallahu ta'ala hears this. He turns back. The next morning, Hazrat Umar Farooq radiyallahu ta'ala comes to the door and asks for the rishta of that daughter for his son.
Subhanallah.
They then have a daughter, and then that daughter has children, and the next progeny was one of the great ambassadors
and
of
Hazrat
Islam.
Sayyidina Umar bin Abdul Aziz radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he was you know, before he became a Khalifa, he had a very you know, fancy life, you know, fashion and everything, and he was a very rich person. And the day Hazrat Umar bin Abdul Aziz radiyallahu ta'ala anhu was supposed to be crowned the next Khalif, all that night he spent crying. And his wife, she said that, why are you crying? You know, Allah Ta'ala has chosen you, and you're becoming the leader of the Muslims. And he goes, I don't think I am worthy of becoming leader of the Muslims. Nowadays, if we get any worldly, you know, status, you know, we are, or as they say, Rati nindar hi nahi pehni.
You know what they say in the books of history? You know, today, a lot of the young youth think, you know, they get their hair cut in all sorts of funny ways and they think, I look cool, yeah? And then they think, right, I've got the youth, I've got the looks. And this is what a lot of them say, I've got the looks, I may as well make the use of them. And then they think, right, that means going out and, you know, doing whatever. Hazrat Umar bin Abdul Aziz rahmatullahi was actually a very, very beautiful young man. He was white-skinned, thin-faced, deep eyes. He was very good looking. But what was brilliant about this Hasti was that born in about 61 after Hijri, so that was the time. So it was after the time of you know, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam's departure from this world, and he was truly a very humble person. Now, in his youth, he was a great admirer of Islamic knowledge. He had great respect for Islamic scholars. And you know, sometimes that admiration for Islamic knowledge and that respect for the ulama ikram brings wonders. Because adab, you know, the Buzurgan, you know, say, Jisne bhi kamai hai, adab mein kamai hai. Or Jisne bhi kamai hai, adabi mein kamai hai. Now, I wasn't even going to try and translate that because it's not easy to do. But basically, those, go on, I'll try. You know, whoever gains success gains it through respect of others. And whoever is dishonored is because he disrespects others, is probably the best. But Hazrat Umar bin Abdul Aziz rahmatullahi had so much love for Islam, for Islamic scholars, and especially the Sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, especially Salah. And you know, we're sat here 1400 years later, yeah, and we're admiring this great personality who's a great Islamic thinker. I think Maktabat al-Madinah has published a book about a very beautiful book about hikayat, and
425 stories of him,
stories of him and hikayat. And you know, like sometimes you want to read these things where, you know, you've got a pearl of wisdom in it or some words of wisdom. This was your man. He was amazing. He gave so much knowledge, and he had such a humble character, but such a beautiful way that he left so many lessons.
In just a short time of period, 2.5 years, he was a Khalifa for 2.5 years, and he was martyred at the age of 39 years old.
Allah.
But what he did for Islam is an amazing thing. Where it was a time where he says that people used to go and collect the zakat, and they would come back with everything, with more money. And Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu would say to them that, have you collected the zakat? And they said, yeah. Have you given the zakat? Yeah, Amirul Mu'mineen, no one needs zakat.
Allah.
Everyone was just giving the zakat. So can you imagine a system or a society where people were giving zakat? No one was in that situation where they had to take zakat.
However, when you look at the life of Hazrat Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, you look at the different facets, the different sides. As a family man, he was always there. As a Amir al-Mu'mineen, as a worshipper, a servant in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal, as a leader, as a commander, as everything.
Yeah.
It was all there. Now, there was one very important thing. How was he able to do all this? Because he was able to focus his youth in the servitude of Allah and His Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For ourselves, sometimes when it comes to Deen, we think, I can't do this is too much. But if it's a business idea, then what often people brag about, so long until line. I've been working 16 hours a day for 5 years to build this empire and buy all these properties and do all this. Gosh, you said I've been working 16 hours a day for the Deen of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No, you're not even on 16 minutes. And this is the reality. At the age of 39, by the age of 39, he left such an impression on the world that we're talking about him 1400 years ago. Within a few days of us dying, is anybody going to remember us?
The book that Maktabatul Madinah has mentioned is Hazrat Sayyidina Umar bin Abdul Aziz ke 425 stories, yeah. Now, the thing is, if you sit down with this book, yeah, I guarantee you're not going to put that book away. It's just one story after another. And Sunnah, the humbleness, the ajizi that Hazrat Umar bin Abdul Aziz radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the amount of love he had for the ulama, the scholars, that he used to give them gifts. Nowadays, what people give to scholars, aajkal mahol aisa ban chuka hai. That's why our scholars are now sadly being respected today, and that's why we're losing everything in our society.
Also, when we look at such personalities, there's one key thing that we learn from their life, because they've had a huge success. They've went to the heights, mashallah, and they had a great maqam in the court of Allah Almighty. And the very important message from their life is, don't waste time. Life is short. Make your life productive.
For example, someone being in the maqam of Umar bin Abdul Aziz, leader of all the Muslims. Do you know Hazrat Umar bin Abdul Aziz was an alim as well?
Subhanallah.
He was a scholar, he was an alim as well. Nowadays, I had a discussion with this other, a friend of mine, and we were talking, and he goes, Wajah kya, why is it that, we divided into two? Dunyadar, we think that business is something else, being a scholar is something else. Halanke, you look at these people, they were scholars, they were businessmen as well. So the problem is sometimes even, when you talk about Jamia, a lot of people say, oh, the school nahi padhai bhi hota hai usi. बच्चे स्कूल दाखिल कराने के बाद उनको पूछा है आलिम भी पढ़ाने होता है और हमेशा every time is gonna be जामिया भी स्कूल नहीं पढ़ाई होती है जामिया है क्या it's become a scholar, but that's how much in love we are with the dunya that in jamia we'll ask them about the worldly knowledge, but we never go to school and say do you ever teach them Islamic knowledge as well?
We were talking about
there's two things here. One is Islam promotes the studying of knowledge. That's the general message of Islam. But knowledge are two types. Knowledge that is essential for you, you have to learn that more. You have to learn that. If you don't, you're a sinful person. And there's many other branches of knowledge. You can learn them, but they're not compulsory for you. Depending on your situation.
Sometimes parents, when they talk about those, माँ पुत्र French सीखना, माँ पुत्र German सीखना, और कोई ये भी था माँ पुत्र अरबी सीखना, so he can learn Arabic and understand the Quran.
In school, I have said, if somebody's learning French, it's part of the curriculum. But I've got brothers who are senior.
You don't have to learn French, do you?
There are brothers that are senior, and working, and they have a pastime these days. Over the last few years, this has developed. I've noticed it. Oh, I'm learning a language on the side, Spanish. Why? If you've got time, Do you know how to read the Quran properly? Oh, Quran padhna nahi hai ishna. Like, I'm learning Spanish on the side. I'm just going to come back to, we mentioned Hazrat Imam Bukhari and how he had collected the great Hadith Mubarakah, and one of the greatest books after the glorious Quran is Bukhari Sharif. One of the early foundations for that was set by Hazrat Umar bin Abdul Aziz radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who ordered the first official collection of the Hadith Mubarakahs as well. So he was a great, and his love for knowledge was what was really stood him out from everything else.
There's certain things that you're doing, certain things which are part of your habit, which are wrong. If you want to have a good life, you want to have a life of piety, then you have to cut off from the bad. If you're going to say, I want to carry on with the good and the bad together, I'll have a chill as well with the boys, it's not going to work. You won't go that far.
And Imam Umar bin Abdul Aziz radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he says that knowledge is is zinat for a person. Zinat. And zinat is beauty is for a person. So subhanallah, if you really want to be looking beautiful, then have knowledge. If we tell these stories to our children, no doubt inshallah our children will become knowledgeable as well. And then also encourage your children to learn the knowledge of the Deen. Sadly, we've come to the end of our program now, but inshallah hopefully we should be here same time next week. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Let your heart shine bright. Let us take you to what is right. Let your heart shine bright. Let us take you to what is right.